Hi, welcome to Brenda Beattie's Brushstrokes, and I'm Brenda Beattie. This channel is all about art. Drawing, painting with acrylics, watercolors, and ink. It has tips and tricks, as well as step-by-step tutorials. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe and press the bell so that you'll be notified each time I create a new video. This video is the first in a series about watercolors. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Watercolor. This particular video is the first one. It's about supplies and equipment. I'm going to talk about the equipment and supplies that I will use in the series. I'll tell you about the minimum you need and about the quality of equipment that's out there and what you should, well, I'll make recommendations. And in the next video we'll learn about brush strokes, and then we'll do a painting using as many brush strokes as I can come up with. Each time, with each new video, I'll show you a new technique with watercolors, and then we'll do a painting with it. I'm a landscape painter, and I also paint flowers, so those will be the subjects for our paintings. There are links to all the supplies I use in the description below. If you purchase through the links, then I get a small commission. This enables me to keep making these videos for you for free. And it doesn't cost you any more if you buy through the links. Please leave comments for me, because I always read the comments and I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think of the videos. And if there's certain techniques or problems you're having or techniques you want to learn, just let me know, okay? I do read them. Here's a list of the supplies I'm going to be talking about, and this list will also occur at the end of the video and in the description at the bottom of the video. So for brushes, here are some of the brushes that you can use. You don't need all of them. You might want more. These are wash brushes. This is a 1.5 wash brush, and this is a 3/4 inch. Those are for covering large areas of watercolor paper with a wash. This is a lovely number 10 round. Oh, by the way, these are called flats because they're flat. This is a Kolinsky sable number 6. Kolinsky sable is beautiful hair for watercolor. It's from a weasel, a Russian weasel, so they are very expensive. They usually, when wet, they will come to a perfect point, and they will hold a lot of water. These ones are white Taklon, which is a synthetic bristle, which many people are getting away from animal hair. It's also called vegetable brush. This is also white Taklon. This is called a rigger or a script liner, and when wet it goes to a tiny point, and you can make some really beautiful lines with that, as I will show you in the next video. And this little one is a detail brush. It's a number 1 round. This is a fan brush, and they have many uses and come in many different sizes, and I'll be showing you that brush in another video. You will need an HB pencil. Well, I'd like to, first of all, for drawing, when sketching our original designs, and then for doing our drawing on our painting, I like to start with a drawing. It gives me more confidence. We'll be using erasers as well. This is a kneaded eraser, and they are very handy to pick up graphite from your watercolor paper before you start painting. And I'll show you that as well. And you can also use a white eraser for, you know, when you make mistakes. This is a quill pen, and it is used for putting paint on paper. It's also used for scratching, making marks. This is a loyalty card, a small one, and you can use a large one as well to scrape the paint off. We'll be doing techniques with that. These are dollar store brushes. I use them for masking. Yes, you can protect your brushes from masking by adding soap to them, but I sometimes forget the soap, or I put too much soap, and I find if I have dollar store brushes, I just feel better about not using my good brushes with masking, because if you don't take the masking off right away, it will ruin brushes. And I'll talk to you about masking in a moment. This is a list of the paint colors that we will be using during this series. I will include this in the description at the bottom of the video as well. Watercolor paint comes in, of course, different brands, and you can end up with your own favorite brand. There are artist quality paints and beginner's paint or student watercolors. So Winsor & Newton has a brand called Cotman, which is student watercolors. So the difference between the student and the artist color is what's used for the pigment. So there may be synthetic pigments used in the student version, because some of the earth pigments are very expensive. I see nothing wrong with painting with the student watercolor versions. Cotman's is a very good brand. Da Vinci is also a fabulous brand. These are artist quality. This is, oh, there's so many brands out there. There's Winsor & Newton, Da Vinci. See, what else do I have? Cotman. This is another Winsor & Newton. Winsor & Newton is one of my favorites, just because I've always painted with them. They're always available in Canada, just about anywhere you go. The pigment used in oils, acrylics, and watercolors is the same. So the pigment for sap green will be the same for watercolors as it is for oils and acrylics. The difference is the medium, or what they mix it with. So with oils, it's linseed oil. With acrylics, it's polymer emulsion, which is plastic. For watercolors, it's gum arabic. Watercolors are wonderful in that when they dry up, they can come alive again with water. Oils and acrylics, you can't do that. So you don't have much waste with watercolors, which is probably why it comes in such tiny little tubes, because we don't use that much, and it's all supply on demand. A tiny little tube like this can cost as much as one this size in acrylic or oils. Palettes. You can use anything for a palette. Oh, and the other thing is, it's handy to have a pair of pliers. These pliers are great because no matter what size tube, it will fit right in that little place there, and you can undo it usually very easily. I happen to have twisted the tube this time. But that fits right in it. Now we're talking about palettes. You can use a paper plate if you wanted to, or a plastic plate, not a paper plate. But I love these big palettes that have all these wells for color and lots of room here for mixing. This one, the Masterson palette, has the lid you can mix in as well. I use a laundry marker. This is a laundry marking pen, And what I've done is I've written the names of the colors inside the palette. You know, sometimes you can't tell the difference. When you look at the colors, you can't quite tell what color it is, especially with the blues, Prussian blue and phthalo blue. If you don't see any color around it, and ultramarine blue, they're almost the same when they're in the palette. The same with Hooker's green and sap green. Hooker's green is so dark, it sometimes might look black. So I have, sometimes it's pretty hard to read because it's hard to write on an angle like that. But I know what it says. That's just a little hint. There are other palettes on the market. This is the Tom Lynch palette. It's a little tiny one. It's great for, and there's a tube of paint in there. It's really great for plein air painting. This is one that I picked up for plein air painting as well, if I can get it open. There we go. It's quite a mess, and it has this handy little thumb thing so that you can hold onto it easily. So that's a very nice one for plein air as well. So if you're going outside, you can just fill up the wells with color, and all you need is this and some water and your paper, and you're set. This is another watercolor palette that's great for outside. So all you really need is some wells for the color. And the reason that I haven't cleaned this is because I can just add water and this paint will come alive again and I can reuse it. I will be using 3 different kinds of tape in this series. This Beginner's Guide to Watercolor Painting, or Beginner's Guide to Watercolors. This is masking tape, Scotch brand, contractor grade. So that's a medium tackiness. You don't have to get that brand, but some of the tape is too sticky, some's not sticky enough. If it's too sticky, it will rip the watercolor paper. If it's not sticky enough, it won't hold it. I will be using artist tape. You can get that in the description down below. It's hardly sticky at all. You can put on your watercolor paper to get a straight line and take it off, remove it without a problem. And this is 2-inch packing tape. I'll be using this for some of the videos, and the cheaper the better, because the cheaper you buy it, the thinner it is. We want it to be quite thin, and we do want it to be able to come off the paper without pulling too much off. But the only paper that will stand up to packing tape is Arches. Any other paper is bound to rip. So make sure you get some Arches paper, as I said in the paper part. And also with the masking, you can use various things to apply masking. You can use a paintbrush. Like I said, the dollar store paintbrush. You can use a stick. You can use a tree branch. You could use a popsicle stick. Whatever, but this is a lovely thing called the PBO. That's a company that makes masking, but this is a masking fluid marker that allows, once it's activated, it allows you to do a very fine line. Not sure if you can see that. There we go. Aren't they? They are wonderful. I just think this is one of the greatest things they ever invented. Although it does plug up, you have to take care of it. And this little thing is a piece of latex that we use when the masking is dry and you want to take it off the paper. Sometimes you can use your finger, as I'm taking it off here, or you can use this pickup, and that will be in the description below with all the other supplies. These are sea sponges. Nice to have a small one so you can just keep it in your hand. And a spray bottle for water. We'll be using that to spray our palette, to wake up our paints. And I think that's all. And also, we'll be using that for some of the techniques. You will need an art board. This is, I think it's called a watercolor art board. And it's also called a gator board. And it's got foam. I don't know if you can see that. It's got foam in the middle. And what I do is I use it to stretch paper. And I have a piece of paper stretched onto this and stapled on. So it's all ready for painting. I have a video on how to stretch watercolor paper, so you can look at that video. I'll post it. If you don't stretch watercolor paper, it's going to buckle when you use a lot of water. And if that should happen, I also have a video on how to straighten a buckled painting. I'm going to talk about watercolor paper now. It is very important to have good quality watercolor paper. First of all, you need a sketchbook. Your sketchbook doesn't have to be very fancy. This one probably came from the dollar store, I don't really remember. But just something that you can do some scribbling in, write some notes. You might want to decide whether you're going to design your painting to be in landscape mode or portrait. Anyway, these sketches will help you figure that out. For exercises, we'll be doing exercises and any kind of a sheet, a booklet of watercolor paper. These are great for exercises. This is 90 pounds. 90 pounds refers to the thickness of the paper. 90 pounds is very lightweight, and if we do too much with it, it's going to buckle and rumple. So it would have to be stretched. For our exercises, we won't bother stretching it. All watercolor paper should be acid-free, because the acid-free, without being acid-free, the paper will yellow over time. So this is another booklet of mine. I like the coil edging. This is just good for trying some exercises in. Now this is a stretched piece of 140-pound watercolor paper. If you don't want to stretch paper, you have a couple of decisions to make and alternatives. This is not finished. It's still in progress, but it's on 300-pound paper, which is almost like painting on cardboard. It's beautiful. It won't need to be stretched. I did take it off of the tape. I had it taped down to a board, and it was still wet when I took the tape off, and so it bowed a little bit, but that won't matter. It's not the kind of rumples that you get in 140-pound paper. And if this was framed, it would just lie flat, no problem. But I could also flatten it by putting a book on it overnight. You'll find out how to stretch watercolor paper by watching my video about it. I'll put a link for you. The cheapest, but if you don't want to stretch watercolor paper, you can buy a block. A block is pre-stretched. It has gum all the way around it, and it has an opening here. So the paper is glued down all the way around except for an opening somewhere. Sometimes it's on the corner, and this one it's in the middle. When your painting is completely finished and dry, you put a palette knife through here or your fingernail and detach the paper from the block. And blocks come in different sizes. We use cold press most often. Cold press is a medium texture. rough press is just as it sounds. It's a rougher texture. The paper has a lot of marks and hills and valleys, and the paint will settle into there and make its own textures. Pretty interesting. Also, there's hot press. Hot press is what I use for my pen and ink drawings because it's really smooth, has hardly any texture to it at all. But it's still good for washes, so you can add water to ink and go over your pen and ink drawings without worry of the paper failing. The cheapest way to get watercolor paper is to buy it in sheets. Sheets of watercolor paper come in 30 by 22 inches. This is Winsor & Newton. In this package I have just a half a sheet left. Usually we paint on a quarter sheet. So a quarter sheet would be 15 by 11 inches. A half sheet would be 15 by 22. So this is, or you could paint on a full sheet, although it's rather cumbersome when it comes to framing. This is Fabriano. I've got lots of sheets left in here because this one came with 10 sheets in it. Fabriano is absolutely beautiful, wonderful paper. I love it to paint on. But if you're going to use a lot of masking, this paper may not stand up as well as Arches. Arches is actually what I recommend. And it does come, paper does come in different colors, even though it's white. This white is extra white. And this white is, doesn't say what kind of white it is. But you'll see it is slightly different color than the extra white. And this is Arches over here, and it's even another color, oddly enough. So make sure for your paintings, not your exercises, but your paintings, you use the highest quality that you can get. 100% cotton, cold press, 140 pounds, or anything up to 300 pounds. 300 pounds, you don't have to stretch. Anything 140 and under, you do have to stretch. And if you happen to have a painting and you didn't stretch it, there are ways around that, and I have a video about how to straighten a crumpled painting. I'll put a link for that as well. So just remember, always use the highest quality paper. You can get away with one paintbrush and a few colors, but you need good watercolor paper. Use anything for a water container, but I really like this one. It also comes with a lid that I can't find at the moment, and it has a handle so I can carry it around from room to room or in the woods if I'm outside painting. It's not necessarily, you could use a jar. The nice one about this is, the nice thing is that when I'm using more than one paintbrush at a time, I can just set the paintbrush here. And that's very interesting. And it has two sides for clean water and for dirty water, and has this stuff on the bottom that helps me to clean a brush. So here is a list of the colors necessary and the supplies that I will be using in the series, The Beginner's Guide to Watercolors. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to all the videos to come. Don't forget to subscribe.